We're getting ready for week 4 of the fantasy season. Let's talk wide receiver. Still a lot of injuries, a lot of new names now on the scene. So who do you start? Who do you sit? We're going to go through every game and talk about every receiver that matters to help you set the winning lineup. Let's start with the receivers that you just have to have in your lineup. Guys like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors, and Rashee Rice. Before we get to the start sit for the Thursday night game, you should also take a look at your pick'ems, and I'm talking about Underdog. If you haven't tried it yet, right now as a new customer, you can get Dak Prescott higher than 0.5 total yards. It's a free pick for you if you sign up right now on Underdog using code ENDGAME. Plus, you also still get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 of bonus cash just for signing up. Thursday night, we're going to see the Cowboys at the Giants. So, Lamb is still a no-doubter. Well, what is going on here with the rest of this receiving core? Jalen Tolbert, I guess, is next. Is he the new wide receiver 2 for Dak Prescott?
Maybe. It seemed like he really kind of spread the ball around in week 3. But, look, even if you told me Tolbert was the wide receiver 2, do I really want to start Jalen Tolbert here? Yeah, I'm going to sit Jalen Tolbert this week.
I'm not going to start him. I still think he's an intriguing stash in a deep enough league, but no, we can't start him. The Giants' defense actually really hasn't been too bad in the secondary. Brandon Cooks, I got concerns. I think the Tolbert thing is more about Cooks just falling off. Is he falling off the map completely?
He might be. We got to remember, this guy's over 30 years old. Maybe it's just we've seen better days from Brandon Cooks. Not starting Brandon Cooks this week.
No, not starting him, and I don't know that you need to hold on to him right now. So Neighbors, yeah, you got him. Just start him. Don't even question it. Is there any value here in a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson? Did get targeted several times as well as the technically number 2 receiver for the Giants. Is that enough?
The difference is when Daniel Jones throws a ball 10 feet away from Malik Neighbors, he somehow goes up and catches it because he's that good. That's not what Wan'Dale Robinson's game is. No, I can't start Wan'Dale Robinson.
Agreed. Robinson's going to be one of those guys you can, throw in your flex if it's a deep bye week, you got injuries or whatnot. Other than that, you probably shouldn't need to start him. All right, let's talk Saints, Falcons. Chris Olave, been pretty good. Had his best game in week 3. Strong start in week 4.
I think so. You got to be a little bit worried here about A.J. Terrell, but look, Devonta Smith last week was having a very nice game before he left that game with injury, so I think there's going to be opportunity for Chris Olave, and as I said, they move him around. They get him in motion. Yeah, I think Chris Olave just pretty much every single week is a very good start.
Exactly. He has that big downfield ability to hit on those long plays, get a touchdown like last week. Nothing about this matchup really moves me off of him, so definitely a strong start. And then, of course, when everybody was in on Rashid Shaheed, league winner, got to start him. You knew this was coming, right? But does he bounce back this week, or do you just put him back on your bench?
Rashid Shaheed is the same guy he was before week 1, before week 2, and before week 3. If he hits on that long play, great. If he doesn't, you're going to wish you didn't have him in your lineup. So flex with upside.
That's exactly right. I don't even know how much the matchup really matters for him. He's fine to flex this week, but again, don't start him over studs. You shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. Drake London had himself a solid game against the Chiefs, 2 straight weeks with a touchdown. Is he back in the almost, I don't say must start, but like very strong start category?
He's certainly back in my circle of trust because, the week 2, it was like, okay, it was a last minute, touchdown. They were hurry up offense, but he was pretty well involved in that game on Sunday night. So I think Drake London, a solid start this week.
I think it's always been more about Cousins and, how he looks and how he's feeling, and he's targeting Drake London. This is a good thing. The offense is coming along. So even though it's not a great matchup, London is still a pretty good start. And then now I guess we have to pay attention to Darnell Mooney, who all of a sudden is getting big chunks of yardage. Is Mooney at least on the flex radar?
Yeah, this is a guy I liked. I talked about him all off season, drafted him a ton on Underdog, but I thought he would be more of this boom bust kind of guy. But we're seeing him being involved here. If he's going to be this involved, I think he's at least worth a flex start.
Agree. This Will definitely come down to your other options, but Mooney is getting targeted. That's what you want to see, so you can definitely consider him. Next up is the Bengals taking on the Panthers. Well, T. Higgins is back. I mean, maybe he didn't light up the Commanders, but does he get better in his second game against the Panthers?
I mean, he could. You got to think he'll slowly but surely get better. But, I mean, this is not as good a matchup as he had last week, of course. But T. Higgins is one of those guys. He just has that weekly upside. I really don't want to leave him on my bench. I mean, he's not a must start if you have better options, but I certainly think T. Higgins is startable.
He definitely is startable. And this is why I really don't like having T. Higgins on my roster. I just don't know if I can trust him ever. But yeah, you got him. He's got that upside. So there you go. Now, I do feel pretty good about Deontay Johnson. This is what we were hoping for when we were talking about him all draft season. I mean, his best game ever because of Andy Dalton. Can he do it again?
I don't know if he can have his best game ever again, but I don't see any reason not to put him in your lineup. I mean, 37% target share was great in week 3. Deontay Johnson, a solid start this week.
Very solid start. I mean, yeah, we don't want to get carried away. He might not repeat week 3, but still, you've got to be feeling really good if you have him. Finally. And unfortunately, can't talk about Adam Thielen. He did score a touchdown, but he's going to be out with a hamstring injury. Does that open the door for a guy like Xavier Leggett now that Andy Dalton is in at quarterback?
It might. I mean, I don't really feel great about him now. It's not like, oh, Thielen's out, you got to start Leggett. But, I mean, there's opportunity here. But again, I think you got to be like a flex in a really deep league. I'd probably prefer not to.
Yeah, I agree. Look, in 12-team leagues, he probably doesn't need to be added or anything like that. So let's just keep an eye on him for now.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. And for a limited time, if you download Draft Lane and sign up, we're going to credit your account with $10 that you can use on any questions you like. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play now and take advantage of that free credit.
Rams at the Bears this week. Here's a frustrating receiver room, and I guess let's start with Demarcus Robinson, who's supposed to be the number 1 receiver there and did almost nothing in week 3. Do we risk it again?
I mean, he's still technically the wide receiver 1, but this is a very tough matchup against the Bears. Flex only this week.
I mean, this isn't just because I was burned by him last week. I don't want to go there. It's on the road, a tough defense. I mean, he didn't even get the most targets on this team. Don't know what they're doing. I'm not going there again with D-Rob, at least not right now. And Jordan Whittington, yeah, that didn't happen either. I mean, are you even keeping out any hope for him?
He ran 10 routes, which was an upgrade from what he had been running. No, not the Whittington breakout. He's not the next Puka.
All right, now on the other side, I think we can feel pretty good about the Bears receivers finally. Let's start with DJ Moore. How good do you feel about him?
You got to feel great. I mean, I know he was overshadowed by Rome Odunze last week, but this Rams defense is terrible. Caleb Williams finally looked like the number 1 pick. The offensive line looked maybe slightly better, but even still, I think you got to feel very, very good about DJ Moore this week. He's a strong start.
I feel great about Moore. And like you said, Odunze kind of made a bigger splash, of course, the rookie, making those big chunk plays. But I really think DJ Moore will feast this week. At least he should. So I'm all in on DJ Moore. That being said, I think I'm pretty much all in on Rome Odunze as well. Finally had his first touchdown, 100-yard game. And this Rams secondary is not good.
It's not good, but this one's going to come down to Keenan Allen for me. If Keenan Allen's out again, then yeah, I think Rome Odunze is startable. If Keenan Allen is back, that's going to kind of muddy things up, so we'll see.
That is a good point. I'll say I do prefer more to Odunze this week, but I still think he's at least a flex, even if Keenan plays. Now, if Keenan plays, do you go ahead and roll him out because of this matchup?
I mean, you got to be a little nervous, right? This heel injury that bothered him in the offseason, bothered him in week 1, but it's the Rams, so I'll at least put him in the flex conversation.
This is a tough one. Again, it really will come down to practice reports. Gotta like the matchup, love what I saw from Caleb, but this is why we do the live streams and those start-sit decisions, because it really is going to come down to who your other options are. Vikings at the Packers. Justin Jefferson proving that if you got him with the 5th or 6th pick, that was too late. He could have been the number 1 pick in fantasy. All right. Now, Jalen Naylor was taken too late because he was not drafted anywhere, and he's been really good this year. Strong separation score. How good do you feel about him now?
Well, I would feel pretty good about him if Jordan Addison was going to be out again, but so far what we're hearing from Kevin O'Connell is that he's optimistic Jordan Addison will play this week. So I'm going to say Jalen Naylor, just an upside flex if Addison is out again.
Agree. I think there's still room for multiple receivers here because Jefferson can't get all the targets. Addison probably not going to draw a ton of targets his first game back. So Naylor's still kind of the guy you're hoping for that big play. If it doesn't happen, you might be left holding the bag. And then Jordan Addison, you got Sam Darnold at quarterback. You got to feel good about him now, right?
You got to feel good about Sam Darnold in this offense, but coming back from injury, Jalen Naylor now involved in the offense. I don't know. Let me see a week of Jordan Addison first.
Agreed, because one thing that he hasn't really developed as much as those other guys is that chemistry, because he's been sitting on the sideline. So you could throw him in your lineup if you need some upside, maybe touchdown, but it's risky. All right, here we go with all the Packers receivers. Now, I think we're going to operate under the premise that Jordan Love will play. Sounds like that's very possible. So what does that do now for Jayden Reed?
I think you got to feel pretty good about Jayden Reed. Even that week one, that big game, the underlying metrics like the target share and stuff didn't, show that he should have had a big game. But this is a guy who has that yard after catch ability. So I think Jayden Reed with Jordan Love is at least a strong start.
Yeah, I think we definitely feel much better about him. The Vikings defense has been good, but Reed is a guy who will still get involved. So I'd say at least he should be in the wide receiver 2 discussion. Christian Watson actually did put up some yards, even with Malik Willis last week. Are you back in on him now?
I'm in on him as an upside flex play. Week one was not great for Christian Watson with a healthy Jordan Love. So if you're looking for a boom potential in your flex, go with Watson.
There you go. We know he's got that upside, but again, kind of feel like we want to wait another week before going all in on Watson because it actually isn't a great matchup for him. And again, a lot of mouths to feed still in this receiving room. Another one is Romeo Doubs. Again, he's kind of done a little something each week, but he hasn't done a lot of something.
He's like the opposite of Christian Watson to me. Like if you want a guy in your flex that you know will get you points, you start Romeo Doubs.
I think that's fair enough. At least he has shown he does have a floor, so you can flex him. Jaguars taking on the Texans. Both these teams are very eager to move on from week 3. Let's start with the Jaguars. Okay, so Christian Kirk, we have signs of life, although is pretty much all in garbage time. But still, does this give you some hope going forward?
It at least gives me hope that, again, you can put him in your flex spot if you want. If you're looking for some upside, just understand, there is a lot of risk with Christian Kirk. So, kind of like Christian Watson, upside flex.
Agree. I wasn't ready to drop Kirk like a lot of teams did. I just don't like this matchup too much because the Texans have a pretty strong pair of corners this year. Don't feel great about the Jags in general, so I don't want to count on garbage time. I want to keep Kirk preferably on my bench. And I think the same goes for Brian Thomas Jr. Sure, he can get those big plays in chunks, or he could not. So, I'm holding him, but I'm not starting him.
Yeah, same thing here. This is even riskier than I think Christian Kirk, so prefer to bench Brian Thomas for now.
And then there's Gabe Davis. Had been leading the Jags in targets the first 2 weeks, then kind of fell by the wayside after week 3. So, any interest in Gabe?
Yeah, didn't really get the Gabe Davis revenge game this week, did we? No, not starting Gabe.
No, we did not, and I don't think we get anything better this week. All right, now on the Texans side, I think you still got to roll with Nico Collins. Obviously, you agree. Do you have to roll with Stephon Diggs, who put up some numbers last week?
He put up some numbers, but he just feels like a floor play to me. You know you'll get some points with Stephon Diggs. And the Jaguars defense doesn't scare me, so he's a floor flex play.
This Jags defense definitely doesn't scare me. Obviously, after getting stomped by Buffalo, we see why. I think one of these Texans receivers is going to go off this week. And I think it's probably going to be Nico, but I think it could be Diggs. I think I want to start him if I have him because, remember, they're missing Tyson Campbell still. Texans, I think, are going to bounce back strong. So I'm kind of in on Diggs this week. Now, Tank Dell so far has kind of been a disappointment. Does he bounce back here too?
He's the opposite of Diggs. He's kind of like this is like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, but different. But Tank Dell is like that guy you can flex him. He's got tremendous upside this week, but there's also tremendous risk.
Yeah, Dell proven to be far riskier than we thought. I think you can still flex him if you want to take that chance, but I don't think you have to start him anymore. Steelers at the Colts this week. Well, the Steelers maybe aren't passing a ton, but they're still George Pickens there. Always has that upside. At the Colts, does he go off this week?
I mean, he's going to go off one of these weeks, and this Colts defense isn't the defense where I look at and say, nope, no chance. Like, I look at this defense and say, ooh, there's a chance for George Pickens this week. So, I mean, I just think George Pickens is always startable because the upside is so high.
Agree. Again, it's a guy I hate to have on my bench because you never know when he's going to explode. And he does at least have a floor because he's by far the number one receiver here. But look, he definitely could boom this week. But even if he doesn't, I know one thing. I feel good about his line right now. An underdog, 50.5 yards. I mean, he's done that already multiple times. He could definitely do it against this Colts defense. So if you have an underdog account, you go right now and you set your pick'ems for week 4. I would say take that Pickens, go higher on the 50.5 receiving yards. If you don't have an underdog account, well, here's what you can do. Take that pick and get the new customer special already mentioned, Dak Prescott, just getting 1 yard, that free pick, you put them together, and you could win right off the bat, your very first pick 'em. Make sure if you do try underdog for the first time, when you sign up to use code ENDGAME, because that gets you not only your new customer special of that free pick, but also the deposit match up to $1,000 of bonus cash. So check it out. On the Colts side, been pretty disappointing overall, especially in the passing game. So a lot of people wonder, what do you do with Michael Pittman Jr.?
I mean, this is, I don't know. This is a tough matchup. Anthony Richardson looks terrible. I mean, still Michael Pittman. I'm not going to say outright bench him, but again, he's just like a floor flex play for me.
If that's all he is, I mean, what are we doing here? Because like you said, Richardson's looked bad passing. Steelers, really tough defense. He might get a lot of Joey Porter Jr. I'm just going to bench him this week until I see things turn around. I don't think this is going to be the week. And Josh Downs returned in week 3, but you might not know it from the box score. Any interest in him?
I mean, I barely have interest in Michael Pittman. How can I really have interest in Josh Downs right now? No.
Exactly. Feel the same way. You can't start Downs. Maybe stash him, but long-term stash. And Alec Pierce, good first couple of weeks. You're holding out any hope for him? Maybe a big play?
I mean, he could always hit on a big play, but man, what happened? Like Anthony Richardson in week 1 throwing those absolute ridiculous dimes. Where did that go? What happened? Like, I'm going to bench Alec Pierce.
Agree. You can keep him if you picked him up. He's come through, but not this week. All right, next up, we got the Broncos at the Jets. Cortland Sutton had his best game, which again, not saying much, but he was definitely involved. Bo Nix finally having a decent game. Are you going to maybe elevate Sutton to at least startable range?
I don't know if I can go there because it's the Jets, it's Sauce Gardner. I think you can flex him because, again, he's so involved in this offense, but don't expect a huge game.
I'm going to expect a lot closer to the first couple of weeks than last week. I don't know. It just feels like Tampa did not show up in that game. So Sauce Gardner, Jets on the road, no way. Then we got Josh Reynolds. I mean, he's done a little something, but I mean, come on. I'm not going there in this matchup.
No, definitely not.
Now, Garrett Wilson, despite scoring a touchdown, kind of disappointing again. Are you worried about him with Pat Surtain on the other side?
I think you have to be at this point. He's shut down every wide receiver one he's faced so far. I mean, I can't tell you to bench Garrett Wilson, but I can't tell you it's going to be a good Garrett Wilson week either. He's startable.
We saw what happened to Mike Evans last week. We tried to stay optimistic. Didn't work out with him. Can it really be better for Garrett Wilson? So again, not an outright have to bench player, but I wouldn't blame you if you did. So then this begs the question, is Alan Lazard maybe the beneficiary of Surtain giving all the attention to Wilson?
I mean, maybe, but what's the benefit here? He scores a touchdown. I mean, I guess desperation flex.
Right. I mean, look, he has scored a couple times, but still, you're rolling the dice here as well. It could just be the Jets don't do anything on offense. I wouldn't be surprised as the lowest scoring game of the week. So You could flex him, or you could not. And then we should probably talk Mike Williams too, getting a little bit more involved every week as he recovers, but is it enough?
No, not there yet. I mean, look, maybe this is the week he scores a touchdown or catches a big play, but it's the Broncos. They have a good secondary. I'm not starting Mike Williams.
Yeah, probably too soon and probably not the right matchup. So you got Mike Williams, just stay patient. Next up, we got the Eagles at the Bucks. All right, so Philadelphia went from having two pretty much absolute must-start receivers to possibly none. A.J. Brown, of course, injured. Now Devontae Smith left with a concussion, very much in question for Week 4. If he plays, do you just roll with him?
I think you have to. I mean, it's a concussion. I'm not trying to make light of a concussion here, but what I'm saying is it shouldn't affect his performance. If he clears all the concussion stuff, you got to treat him as if he's fully healthy. He's been great with A.J. Brown. He's been great without A.J. Brown. If he's playing, he's in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles and fantasy owners definitely hoping he plays, hoping he's okay. He was on his way to a big game before he left, so if he's in there, he's going to get so many targets, you got to start him. If he isn't, we could be looking at Jahan Dotson, number one receiver for Philly. I don't know if that's a good thing.
I don't think it's a good thing for Philly, and I don't think it's a good thing for your fantasy team. I'm not doing this with Jahan Dotson. It'll probably just be like a huge Saquon and Dallas Goedert game.
Exactly. And can't even talk. Look, the guy who benefited from the AJB injury was Britton Covey. He's hurt too. I don't even think Dotson is worth considering, so no. All right, now let's talk Commanders at the Cardinals. And then there's Terry McLaurin. Finally, this is what we've been waiting for, right? 100-yard game and a touchdown. Is this enough that you want to just keep him in your lineup?
I mean, you got to have a little bit of caution here, right? Like, it's one nice game, but I think what is encouraging for me is we're seeing this offense every week get better. Jaden Daniels every week get better. And what I liked that I saw in this game was obviously the very deep ball, but even that touchdown was a 27-yard touchdown. That's what I talked about all offseason with Jaden Daniels, that deep ball accuracy. Look, maybe it was a one-week outlier, but this is enough for me to at least say Terry McLaurin is startable.
Yeah, we can't pretend that the risk is gone. Could definitely, go back to the way it was the first couple of weeks, but still, this is what we were hoping for. So, obviously, more of a boom-bust play here, but at least more of a wide receiver 3 than just a bench player. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., okay, I guess maybe not absolute no doubt must start anymore, but you still, it's the Commanders. I mean, come on, we got to start him, right?
You got to start him. This has all the makings of a huge week this week. You got to start Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, and then you know what? Take it a step further. Okay, maybe not you have to start Michael Wilson, but I'm definitely considering him strongly where I have him.
I will consider him as, again, another upside flex here because it's the Commanders. He's decently involved, so an upside flex.
And then Greg Dortch. Are we going there based on matchup alone?
No, this is like I just want a guy who's not going to give me a 0. I mean, come on, you can do better than this.
I will say, if Trey McBride misses, which is very possible, Greg Dortch could get more targets, but still, we're looking floor, not ceiling, so just keep that in mind. Patriots taking on the 49ers in San Francisco. Well, I guess we could talk about a Patriots receiver because Demario Douglas finally had a few catches and some yards, but still, this is the Patriots.
Yeah, and that was squeaky wheel. Remember, he was complaining all week about not being involved in the offense. They're like, okay, fine, here you go. Yeah, I'm not starting Demario Douglas.
Nah, I wouldn't start him anyways, and the matchup makes me even more strongly say I'm not going to start him. Brandon Ayuk, well, didn't go off last week. There was a different Niners receiver who did, but is Brandon Ayuk still considered a borderline must-start just because of all those injuries?
I think he has to be. I mean, he still had 10 targets last week, a 34% target share. It just didn't happen for him. It's going to happen at some point. Again, Ayuk's just another guy. I don't want him on my bench because on any given week, he can just explode. So I think Brandon Ayuk a very good start this week.
Yeah, we're starting to hear all the theories of, well, he got his contract, he's paid now, he's not putting effort, or he's still rusty from holding out. I don't know. I mean, he wasn't bad, but he just didn't go off last week. I think he's still a guy you just keep in your lineup. All right, so here we go now. Juwan Jennings. Let's just keep this short and simple. What do you do with Jennings if you have him this week, if you're lucky enough to get him?
If I had to pick the biggest trap for week 4, it would be Juwan Jennings. There is no way he's coming close to what he did last week. And now that I said that, he'll probably top it or something. But, I mean, look, all the 49ers are hurt. He's getting the targets. You can definitely flex Juwan Jennings.
I want to try to just view him the same way I viewed him before week 3. He's a flex with upside, especially if he scores. He could definitely score another touchdown. So I think 60, 70 yards and a touchdown is reasonable. And I think that's what you should expect. And that's, again, more ceiling than floor, although, So upside flex. Chiefs at the Chargers. At this point, Rashee Rice is just somebody you need to keep in your lineup, especially against the zone-heavy Chargers defense. What about Xavier Worthy, though? 2 back-to-back nothing weeks.
Yeah, this is the problem. I mean, he basically gets end arounds and go routes, which is like, yep, he could hit on one of those and give you a good game, or he could not hit one of those and give you nothing. So, dice roll flex play.
That's it. Kind of touchdown or bust. Week 1 just happened to be a 2-touchdown week, and the last 2 have been nothing. So, he could, but just know the floor is basically almost nothing. All right, now on the Chargers side, what about Quentin Johnston, first of all? It was looking like a great pickup, but now Justin Herbert's status is in doubt for this week. Does that mean we have to be off of QJ completely?
I mean, I was off of him last week because tough matchup, and what did he do? Went out there and scored again. Yeah, you can't feel good if it's Taylor Heineke, but I also at this point can't really say you have to bench Quentin Johnston. This is 2 weeks in a row, but just a flex start.
Right. At least Heineke's a veteran. He will throw the ball, but I don't know how much this offense is really going to throw the ball anyways. Against the Chiefs, they're probably just going to try to run as much clock as they can. So I really would prefer not to start Johnston. And then Ladd McConkey, I'm not sure if I see a way that he benefits in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I can barely flex QJ. I don't think I'm ready to do it with McConkey yet. Not starting him.
Nah, you can keep him stash. He at least is somewhat involved, but that's the ceiling's not there yet. All right, we got the Browns at the Raiders. Another chance for a revenge game of Amari Cooper, now against one of his former teams. Hey, he was really good last week. Does he do it again?
I think he does. Raiders secondary bottom 10. I know it's always scary to put Amari Cooper in your lineup, but I really do think he booms again this week. I think he's a solid start, I think
you have to consider him that. Again, always boom or bust with this guy, right? But that's the type of upside you want in your lineup. It's really amazing how Deshaun Watson has been so bad, and yet Cooper has had a really good game. Judy is somehow having decent games. I don't know, but I think if you have Cooper, you pretty much start him. And what about Jerry Jeudy? I mean, talk about how bad the Raiders secondary is. Does that make him a better option?
I mean, what's the upside here with Jerry Jeudy? Like you said, Deshaun Watson has legit been one of the worst quarterbacks this year. Like, no upside here for Jerry Jeudy. No thanks.
I will say at least he's giving some sort of a floor. He's been targeted steadily several times in every game. If you want that, sure, you can flex him out. All right, now let's talk Raiders. Devontae Adams. I guess Minshew's still the guy for now. What do you think about Adams against this supposedly tough Browns secondary?
I think the same thing I always think about Adams. Like, I mean, he's going to have a game like he had in week 2, and then you feel like, man, I got to roll out Devontae Adams. And then it's like, oh yeah, we still got Gardner Minshew and maybe Aiden O'Connell throwing passes here. Like, but at the same time, like, are you really benching Devontae Adams? He's solid, I guess.
I'll tell you what, look, most of these matchups, I feel like I have a pretty good idea how the game is going to go. This is the one I honestly have no idea. The Raiders from week to week, they're schizophrenic. Denzel Ward is really good. Martin Emerson has been horrible this year. Who's covering Adams primarily? Does it matter? I don't know. I think Adams is still startable, but more like a wide receiver 3 this week. And then Jacoby Myers is still there. Does that matter to you?
I mean, look, he had a big game in week 3, but it was garbage time with Aiden O'Connell. So, yeah, I'm not starting Jacoby Myers.
This is getting a little too deep. Not counting on it. Probably not starting him. Trey Tucker actually came through with a big play, but I mean, we're not going there, are we?
No, this is chasing fantasy points from the week before. No.
On Sunday night, we're gonna get Buffalo at Baltimore. Should be a good one. All right, so let's see. We'll start with Khalil Shakir. Had himself a pretty nice game in week 3. What do you think he does against Baltimore?
I mean, it's you just never know. But I will say this about Shakir. He seems to be the number one wide receiver here, so he's probably the guy I feel the best about in this Buffalo offense. I mean, we've seen all sorts of ranges of outcomes for these wide receivers, but Shakir's the one I feel the best about. I think he's a flex start.
Yeah, starting to come around. I mean, we knew he could be a solid flex option. I thought more of a floor play, but I mean, he's coming on. So, well, I think maybe closer to a wide receiver 3 in a deeper league, but definitely a strong flex. All right, Keon Coleman was just one of many Bills who scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football. Not a whole lot of action, though, other than that. So, where do you put him?
Yeah, I'm not chasing that. This is a tougher defense than the Jags. I think I'm still sitting Keon Coleman.
Agree. Look, once in a while, he'll score a touchdown, make a big play downfield. It's not enough. I need more than this. So Coleman's a guy who still just should be on fantasy benches. And Curtis Samuel, it feels like really hasn't done much of anything. I mean, even in that route in week 3, barely involved. Can we even still think about him?
No, you can't start Curtis Samuel.
No, agree. Not a guy even worth holding at this point. All right, Baltimore side, Zay Flowers. Looks like year 2 breakout continues to happen. Zay Flowers got to be a pretty strong start.
Yeah, it did let down in week 3, but that was a weird game where like the Ravens just ran wild and barely threw the ball. They're going to have to throw it more this week. I think Zay Flowers a strong start.
I mean, got to worry about this Bills defense is for real, but I'm not sitting Zay Flowers for the most part. Rashad Bateman actually did score a touchdown. We have a Bateman appearance. That's not enough.
No, not enough. Not chasing that, not starting them.
All right, Monday night, we're going to see the Titans at the Dolphins. All right, let's start with Calvin Ridley. Well, let down in week 3. Does he bounce back in week 4?
I mean, I talked about on the streams, like when I was looking at Calvin Ridley, it's like, I don't understand how he has all these fantasy points. It felt like a lot of smoke and mirrors, and, we saw that. But, I mean, it's the Dolphins. This secondary doesn't scare me. I guess I'll put him in there as a flex.
I feel pretty good about him this week because the Dolphins secondary is not very good. And, of course, their offense struggling too. Kader Kahu is, I think, the lowest graded cornerback in the league right now. Jalen Ramsey is just not himself. So I can't be all in on Ridley, but I still think he should be a strong start. And then we saw DeAndre Hopkins' appearance. I mean, after exactly 1 catch, first 2 games, had himself a nice day and a touchdown in week 3. Flex radar, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we're going to get with this Titans offense. And this is what I talked about in the offseason. Like, 1 week it might be Hop, 1 week it might be Ridley, 1 week it might be nobody. So, yeah, you can flex Hopkins.
Well, very easily could be nobody this week. I mean, yeah, there's risk here. But I think at least he's now entered the conversation as a flex option. And then, sadly, I mean, we just can't call Tyreek Hill a must-start at this point. I mean, Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, Tyler Huntley, does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Look, I don't think I could tell you to outright bench Tyreek Hill because this is a guy on 1 play could, be worth a start. But I can't call Tyreek Hill anything more than a flex start, unfortunately.
Exactly. Man, he's dropped several notches because, and I don't want to get into a whole rant about why the backup quarterback situation is this way in Miami, but this offense needs some work. Tyreek Hill is a risky flex start. So does that mean Jalen Waddle is a must bench?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless you're talking about like just the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, how good can we feel about Waddle? You got to sit him.
Till further notice, this offense is pretty much off limits in the passing game. And week 4 will end with the Seahawks at the Lions. Could be a high-scoring affair. Let's see. DK Metcalf, look, just don't worry. Keep him in your lineup at this point. But what about JSN? He didn't really do much against this Dolphins secondary in week 3. Now against the Lions in week 4.
I mean, it's a good matchup, and the Lions give up a ton of points out of the slot. Even like Greg Dortch was okay last week out of the slot. But, man, I did not like what I saw from him after that big week 2. But still, it's a good matchup. I'm not giving up on him yet, but I'm only going to put him in the flex category.
Taking a leap of faith here. Like you mentioned, Lions, primarily a slot receiver, got the talent. I think just the game script didn't favor him because honestly, they didn't even have to throw the ball much in the second half. They took their foot off the gas pedal. I'm going to say JSN is going to be one of my favorite upside picks. I'm going to still start him if I can. And that leaves Tyler Lockett, who actually was more involved than JSN last week. Is Lockett flexible?
I mean, I don't know, because this is what happened in week 1, and then Lockett did nothing. Nah, I still don't want to start Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I still feel he's more just a floor guy. Look, if I'm in on JSN and I'm definitely starting DK, I don't feel like I would want to start Lockett also. I think he's the one who probably does the least here. So mostly a bench player. And then on the other side there, Jameson Williams definitely let down in week 3. Is this a get right spot for him?
Maybe. I mean, they're at home, but the Seahawks secondary is pretty good, but I'm not giving up on Jameson Williams after one down game. I still think Jameson Williams is startable.
Yeah, this Seattle secondary is actually really good, but Detroit at home, usually good offensively. If this gets into a shootout, he could benefit. So I think there's still definite risk here, but he's a strong flex. All right, now you know how we feel about all the wide receivers that matter for week 4. Don't forget, we got you covered for running back, quarterback, tight end, and so much more. Everything you need to know to win is in this week's playlist.